Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of this episode of Forced Conversations. This part is going to be the review of Life Debt, and we'll take it from here.
Yeah. Fun times ahead, everyone. So, are you ready for some reviews, Jay?
I am very ready, because you've read Star Wars Aftermath Life Debt, right?
I have.
And I haven't, so I'm still halfway through the first one. So
I'll tell you what,
I'm very interested to hear what you make of this one and what happens in it. This is a full spoiler review again.
Yeah,
so just keep spoilers.
Look, I'll tell you what, I'm not.
The spoilers, right?
I'm not going to spoil it. But I think what I can't help but do is tell you some things about the book, and I don't know if I class it. I'm not going to try and tell you what happens and ruin the story of the book, but there are some things in it that I need to talk about.
Okay.
And just generally how it's done. So let's just first of all talk, about the book. First of all, the first book, Aftermath, wasn't the best. I think universally, most people who've read it have said that it wasn't the best written book in the world, and there was a lot that. First of all, it tried to do too much. But what it was trying to convey was the aftermath across the whole galaxy of, what happened in Return of the Jedi. Spoiler. So basically, what it was trying to do was it introduced a core cast of a new cast, as well as trying to tell you what's happened to the Empire at the end of Return of the Jedi, as well as telling you what's happened to the New Republic, forming of that, and then it would just cut all over the place and tell you little stories set in different places to give you this. I think the aspiration was to give you this feeling of all the different things happen across the galaxy, all these little stories. Now, that was definitely trying to do too much, because that would have been better to be in a little short story book.
I was about to say, do you think that would have been better as just short stories?
Absolutely.
Like the old ones that I like, the Jabba's Palace
absolutely.
One,
Tales of the end of the Empire.
And that's easier for someone like me to read.
Yeah, and the thing is, because I've listened to it on audiobook, and I've just found it so hard to work out who they were talking about, because most of the cast was new people.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, there was the massive disappointment that you weren't actually finding out what happened to Han, Leia, and Luke anyway, because it was all billed as, Journey to the Force Awakens. You were expecting to find out what happened to them, and you didn't in that first film, the first book, sorry. It was all about setting up these new characters whose names you didn't know. And so me trying to remember who this person, I'm rubbish at names anyway. We've all worked that one out. Trying to keep on track with who these people were was doing me nothing. And as I said, some of the writing was a bit wonky, I thought. To me, it felt rushed. So moving on to Life Debt. So Star Wars Aftermath Life Debt, I better say, written by Chuck Wendig. I'm just going to get my notes now, guys, because I too am organised, just like Jay. I know this sorcerous ways of mine. So Chuck Wendig is the author. Published in July 12, 2016.
My birthday.
Del Rey. Huh?
My birthday.
It was. Yeah. What a lovely day.
It was a lovely day.
Oh.
I went to LA that day.
Did you?
Yeah, you went to...
Was that when I was at Celebration?
Yes, well, it was a few days later, yes.
Because they had a big launch of this at Celebration. There were loads of them all over the place, a big bookstore. Really nice, Jay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so second novel, it's canon. It's part of a trilogy. Okay, so that's the background. So basically, where we are is it's moved on a couple of months, maybe not much from the end of Aftermath. So again, you've not read that. I'm not going to spoil the end of Aftermath either.
You can spoil if you want this.
Okay, so basically we've
at some point.
The main crew now that we're following is Nora Wexley, who is a Y-wing pilot from the Battle of Endor. Yeah.
These guys were in the comic as well, because there was a Star Wars.
Yes.
Was it
Shattered Empire?
Shattered Empire. They were in there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. Okay. So again, more confusion for the first book was not only were we introduced to Nora, but we kept flashing back to different parts in her life, which confused the hell out of me. Because 1 minute we were talking about where she was, and then she was flashing back to being in the Battle of Endor, and I was just like, what is going on? Anyway, so there's Nora Wexley. She is the mother of Timon Wexley, who I didn't twig in the last book, but is Snap Wesley. Now, the reason I didn't twig this was because, one, they never called him Snap in the first book, and two, I thought he was the wrong age to be Snap Wesley, because he was meant to be about 16 in this book, and I thought he would be well too old to be the Snap Wesley that we knew in Force Awakens. But I'm wrong, obviously.
Yeah, it's not that much later.
Yeah, well, it's 30 years, isn't it?
Yeah, so he would be
46, 50.
Oh, yeah, he's in his 40s.
Yeah, I think I've just realised I am rubbish at telling people's ages. Anyway, so, ignoring that. So we find out that he's Snap, which is good. And so so Nora Wexley, I'll just give you a bit of background on her. So she's a Y-Wing pilot from Return of the Jedi. Obviously, she's had a bit of shell shock from that as well, because that wasn't all fun and games, was it, being involved in that? The backstory on her is that actually her husband, whose name I can't remember, it is on my list somewhere, but I'm not going to spend ages looking for it. Her husband was captured by the Imperials when Tenon was young, and that's when she joined the rebellion. So she only joined the rebellion because her husband, who was part of the rebellion, was captured. And so Tenon's grown up for most of his life without, but she then buggered off to the rebellion and left Tenon on this planet with his aunts, his lesbian aunts. There's a lot of lesbian and gay people in this, which is good.
They did make a point of saying that it was the first time you were seeing some some gay
it's much more diverse cast, absolutely. And so he lived with his aunts, and so he had a big chip on his shoulder about Nora because she buggered off and joined the rebellion, and his dad was missing, dead, whatever. So she's the main character, and she's also got a bit of an on and off thing with Wedge, because Wedge was in the first book. I won't say what his role was in it,
I've read a couple,
but Wedge was in the first book.
Yeah.
The other main, so she's the leader of a gang, and she's basically leading a group of Imperial hunters. So they go out, they're sent out by the New Republic to find like key people from the old Empire and capture them. And so in her group are the people that we were all introduced into in the first book. So one of the other key characters, I just dropped my phone with the notes, professional, is, and my dog's now barking, is Sinjar Rath Velas. So he was an ex-Imperial officer, again, on the Battle of Endor. He basically realised that he was on the losing side, killed a rebel, nicked his clothes, and then pretended to be a rebel.
The killed rebel defected to the rebels.
Yeah, well he didn't. He just basically went and hid, and then he ended up getting engaged. So without ruining the first book, he then became part of the gang.
Well, we all know in Rogue One the rebels do some dirty stuff from time to time. So that's how.
Well, and this gang is basically a bit rough and ready, tough gang. There's the bounty hunter Jaz Amari, and she is a thingy. What's a Maul? What's Darth Maul?
Zabrak.
Yeah, she's a Zabrak.
So she's in the first book, right?
Yeah, she's in the first book.
I remember.
So now she's become besties with Sinjir for some reason. And Sinjir is a gay man as well, which is, again, they go into that quite a lot, which is quite interesting. She's got there's someone called Jorn Burrell. He's in a little gang, along with Tinnen. And Tinnen's got a robot that he's rebuilt, which was an old battle droid called Mr. Bones, who's, again, one of the better characters. But, again, another robot that's a bit naughty, another bit psycho, so we're going down this line again of that side of things.
Yeah, they're kind of stuck on personalities there, aren't they?
Yeah, so the story's more about them. The thing that's different this time is it's much more about the New Republic, setting up the New Republic, what's happening to the end of the Empire, and Leia and Han and Chewbacca are in this book. So
right.
In the first book, they weren't in it really, hardly at all. They're mentioned a few times. But in this one, there's a mission. Leia's very much involved in it, and it's setting up a lot of the storylines from the later Bloodlines book, which is set 6 years before Force Awakens. So it's setting up all the political issues that are in there. It gives you the beginnings of how the First Order is potentially going to be built. It's also introduced, on the Empire side, it's introduced, first of all, there's Admiral, here we go, Admiral, what is her name? Admiral Ray Sloan. Now, she was introduced all the way back in the New Dawn book, which was the one with which showed you how became chums and stuff. Now, so she's been in I think she's been in some of the comics as well.
She's like a war criminal or something.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, so basically, she's an admiral. She basically becomes the face of the Empire and becomes the leader of the Empire. But she's being advised by a mysterious fleet admiral who's in the background. Now, you only hear little bits of him in the first book. His story is definitely much more revealed in this book.
Right.
And a lot of people are saying that he's going to be Snoke. Absolutely not. Okay. I can tell you he's not.
But
I don't reckon he is.
Is that clarified in this book?
No, it's not clarified. But people are saying, this bloke potentially could be Snoke.
What makes you say that he isn't?
Because they've gone into too much detail on who he is in this.
Is he 7 foot tall?
No, exactly. He's not 7 foot tall. You could look at it and you could fit him to be this character. I honestly don't think it's going to be him.
Well, they've said that in
he is
Snoke's going to be a 7 foot tall dude.
Yeah, well, he's not, and also he's a great protagonist for this storyline. But I think by the end of his trilogy, he's going to be dead. Okay. That's my view on it anyway.
Well, you've read to the end of the trilogy?
No, because the third book hasn't come out yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. So,
yeah. It comes out soon, though, next month.
Oh, are you excited for it?
I am really excited for it now.
Okay, cool.
So, look, I'm not going to go into every single detail, but basically what this book does, the team that we were introduced to in the last book, now we know them. They actually work really well together. They're a great team. They're all really good characters. Quite a diverse group, as I said. And they've actually been given a mission, and they've got a purpose that links into something that we actually want to see, which is how the New Republic's being built. There's a really, really interesting storyline. The core storyline of this book is really good, really engaging. Moves things along. We're starting to see how it all fits into the wider story that we eventually end up in Force Awakens for. So that's all the good bits. There's still a tendency to get sidetracked on these random little stories.
It's not as much. It sounds like that. It really does sound like there's so many different bits, and like the read.
They tell you the story. Read. They tell you the story of the Rancorn Keeper. And what happens to him afterwards?
Really?
Of all the random things you do not want to know,
I don't care
you find out what happens to him.
Oh, okay, great, brilliant. Is it good? Is it pointless?
Well, again, unless it's set up for a future story, that's all I can think of. I think there is a lot. I think a lot of this is about trying to set up a bigger world. Now, the one thing Chuck does much better in this book, he references so many different sources. And this is, again, where I want to get into around how Lucasfilm is moving forward with this canon.
Right.
Because he pulls down from Rebels, he pulls down from some of the comics, he pulls down from other novels, from Lords of Sith, from the films. Obviously, there's influences as what's leading. So he's doing a good job. I mean, he's obviously got he's got Pablo and his crew behind him.
Yeah, the story
telling him, right, reference this, reference that, which I'm worried about, and we'll get onto that in a second. But it is becoming a much more cohesive universe. I did feel that it was slightly conflicting, I felt, with some of the things that we've established from the Bloodlines book. But then I think that's the issue with what's happening at the moment, which I don't want to get into because I want to talk about it in a minute.
Yeah.
So to finish off my rough review, because it hasn't really been a review, it's just been me telling you, there's some really cool moments in this book, some really good bits. There's some genuine surprises, I think. There's some bits I could see coming a million miles away, but it's the core story is really good and definitely it's really worth. And it's basically the setting up for the next book. The next book is the one we want to see. It's going to be really good, I think. There's stories, there's links about the dark side. There's some clues potentially that could be all going back to the Old Republic, maybe. There's some hints there. There's also some interesting things about Leo and Han. I don't think it's. I mean, it's obviously something that happens in the book, but I don't think it's not a massive spoilers. It's not going to ruin any up. So basically, Leia is pregnant in this book.
Right. Okay.
So she discovers she's pregnant. Han and Leia are already married. They got married at the end of Endor, the Endor battle. And she talks about some of the lessons she's been learning from Luke in terms of the Force.
Right.
So this is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a theory on it, which I don't know if you want to hear.
Of course.
Because, so basically, she's talking about how Luke had been trying to teach her about some calming techniques and about centering herself. And apparently, I think the tree that they get in Shattered Empire would have called the Force tree.
Yeah.
And she talks about trying to sense the tree, and she'd never been able to do it. Now she's pregnant, she can.
Right.
Or she can sense something. So my theory is that all the Force stuff that she's experiencing isn't her. It's all
Kylo. It's Ben. Yeah.
Yeah, and she starts having Force dreams. There's some dreams about Padme. There's dreams. So
she's forcing for two, or he is.
Yeah. So again, some interesting things there. It's all playing out and potentially leading. Giving us a bit of a clue as to what happens to this isn't spoilers. We know what happens to Ben. So
we know where he's going. You mentioned in it that it sort of starts to explain a little bit of how the New Republic was formed and the First Order. Right. Mm-hmm. I don't think. Well, without giving away any spoilers, with the bits where it talks about the First Order, does it sort of hint at anything as to do with Snoke, or does it give us anything?
Well, this is the thing, because basically this Admiral guy that's this advisor to Ray Sloan now, and that's the official capacity, but really oh God, I don't know if it's a spoiler or not, but basically,
let's say there's some spoilers.
Right, so he's basically pulling the strings. He's in charge. And Ray Sloan, I don't know did you read the old EU books? Do you remember Admiral Darla?
Yes.
She really reminds me of her in some respects.
Right.
And this is, again, it's sort of retouching different characters with different names and giving them aspects of old characters, so it's confusing me a little bit as to what's canon and what isn't.
Yeah.
But very much, this guy is setting it all up. And he had strong links to the Emperor. And that's all I'll say without spoiling any more than that.
Okay.
But he definitely had links to the Emperor and was given specific missions from the Emperor. And we don't know whether or not he even thinks the Emperor's alive. There's a lot of people saying that they think
this is the guy that everyone thinks is going to be Snoke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And he sets up a shadow council, and in that is Hux's dad.
Right.
And and Hux you hear about Hux as well, his background and things like that, and he's a little shit and things like that. So, and it's all about oh, the Empire needs children if we're going to survive, and all this kind of thing. And so it all talks to about the whole philosophy of how they create stormtroopers in the future and stuff like that.
Okay.
So basically, and also the way that he's deploying the fleets and where the fleets are and where the ships have disappeared from. All this is setting up for potentially the First Order. Now, we know from Bloodlines, the First Order is not even a thing until at least 6 years before Force Awakens. So, again, it's a long game, which is where I guess what I wanted to move on into in the discussion really is about the way that Lucasfilm is rolling things out. I guess it's mainly the novels, but I think it's just generally the whole thing. It's the fact that they are...
So, just before you go into this, as it's a review,
yeah.
out of 5, how many out of 5 do you give the book?
Okay, I give the core story 4.5 out of 5.
Okay.
But the book as a whole, because there's a lot of guff in it, I'll give 4. Yeah, I'll knock it down a bit.
It's still a good book.
It's still good. It's still good. I was riveted throughout the whole thing.
Just out of interest, then, the first one.
Yeah.
What would you have given that out of 5?
I would have given it 2.5 to 3.
Okay. All right.
But again, I'm quite high school. Yeah, a big improvement, massive improvement. I mean, I know a lot. I saw a lot of reviews because I did a little bit of digging afterwards to see if there's anything I missed. And a lot of people were slating it on that first review, the first book. I saw a lot of reviews saying now, and they were a bit more critical about, the way it's, the way the tense was used. I mean, like, I don't care about stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just want to know if it's a good story and it keeps me going. And also, the one thing I will say, again, I listened to an audible version read by Mark Thompson. He's the best. All of the novels that he reads are brilliant. He does brilliant voices. Again, not everybody likes this in their audiobooks, but these Star Wars audiobooks have sound effects, they have music. Some people find that distracting. I love it. I think it enhances the story.
I like that, yeah.
Yeah, and he does some great voices, and they turn him, like Mr. Bones, the robot, they obviously make him sound like a battle droid. That's not something you get if you're just normally reading it. So, again, some people might not like that. I loved it. It all enhanced it for me.
Cool, awesome. Right, now onto your discussion.
Right, so onto my gripe, or not my gripe, but my concern. My concern is the way that we're telling things all out of context and out of chronological order now. So the great thing about the old EU books, predominantly most of them were set on a timeline. Right. We were telling the story since from the Thrawn trilogy all the way to the Fate of a Jedi series, which was the last one in the old EU. It was basically telling you that story from the end of Return of the Jedi all the way up for 30 years.
Yeah, in order.
And yes, they did have a lot of other books, but they weren't in that core series. And you could go and read a book about Obi Wan or the Clone Wars, but they weren't in that course.
Yeah.
So when you were reading,
that main storyline.
Yeah. And so everything evolved naturally, and I guess that's where they told stories and they had filler stories and things like that. But ultimately, they built on and just kept on building on the story. My big concern is now we're jumping all over the place, and as much as there's this massive hit team behind Lucasfilm keeping an eye on the stories, already I felt this story did not connect very well with Bloodlines. I felt it was at odds.
What was it that you felt was at odds?
Well, it's just the way that, because obviously Bloodlines. Have you read Bloodlines?
No.
Okay. Well, a big part of Bloodlines is all about how the two fractions in the New Republic. There's one, I can't remember what they call them, centralists, and I want to say separatists, but it's not separatists because that's from the old thing. But there's the ones that eventually are wanting it more of an empire type, first ordery type, and then there's the people that are really the core New Republic types. Yeah, and there's a real strong different political split in that book, and it's all in, and you can see that's how the First Order leads, and part of the Bloodline story is all about how, first of all, that Leia gets her past revealed and people find out that she's related to Darth Vader, and the fact that she's already lost Kylo, he's gone off and done whatever he's doing, and the fact that through, you know, they want to elect a leader, a superior senator, and she's a shoo-in for it. Then they find out that she's thingy, and then there's this whole storyline around how she creates this great bond with a politician on the other camp, and ultimately it's a really good book, really interesting,
and it sort of explains how they don't have the full support of
but
I sort of have sort of read,
but at that time the First Order is not established, and what I get the feeling from is from this book, which is set 30 years before roughly, they're almost ready to go, you know, right, potentially. Okay. The way I read it was Chuck hadn't been told that's what's going to happen in Bloodlines, and so he was getting ready to tell you how the First Order was going to be formed.
Right.
And I'm sure that by the next book they're going to slow it down. But I think there was a bit of a miscommunication in between this, and I think it's a mistake to be, particularly within that timeline, that small timeline, to be chopping, and it goes back to Rebels and Rogue One. You know, there's a difference of 2 years at the moment. It's a real dodgy territory to be telling a story which could have a massive impact on something that's ongoing. I just think they're going to open themselves up to plot holes by sticking to everything being canon.
Well, it's the thing that we were saying earlier, like things that are already starting to bug you, like say with the Jedi, for example. Like that's starting to bug me that they're just around, and when it's like the Jedi all but extinct, it's like they died last week, so now they're extinct. We need some new ones, you know. And same with like having all these comics. Like there's so many different titles that keep coming out, and you got ones that are based around, you know, Darth Vader. We saw Darth Vader. We got the main Star Wars one. Now you got the Poe Dameron one. So that's telling a story about Poe Dameron. Well, how far can you go with these stories? Because you know, they're going to want to keep creating stories. They're going to keep having more titles come out or having more ongoing ones because it's more money. And then you got like more books coming out. Well, they've got to tell a story that's interesting to people. So they're going to try and fill in bits between Empire and Jedi or something like that. But then there'll be comics that are doing that too. So now they have to match up. And for me personally, some of the things that I've read in those comics, I haven't read through all of them, but the bits in it, I was like, right, you know, and I think there was a bit where Luke runs into Vader already, and I'm like, that kind of sucks. Like,
it's too early.
Because for me, when he met him in Empire, that
was about the first.
That was the first. And so it's like, well, they met each other. That makes that less special or less interesting, you know. And they're going to start doing this stuff, which is why. You remember we were talking, I think it was last week, and I said, okay, look, I'm kind of cool with, let's say we have movies and books, but then the comics and games and that should be their own thing, because then they can just go do what they want. Anyhow, they bring in the Green Bunny Jackson, right? That's going to piss me off, because then in canon, there's green bunnies running around the Star Wars galaxy, and you can start, because also with the comics and that, they're going to have all these characters to play with. But the creators are going to make their own characters, right? So you're going to go on to this after you've read Afra. A lot of people seem to like her as a character, cool, and they like the droids as well, BT and the 000. So okay, they've done all right there. But I haven't got through all the Darth Vader ones, but I was having a look at a couple of issues, and there's like the character looks like Kanan, and the woman with the like shades embedded in her face, and the twins with lightsabers again. And I'm just like, they don't feel like Star Wars characters to me. No. Like, I think they're stupid. And then you've got General Tag ordering Vader around, and they all talk to him like he's a little bitch. And I'm like, no, that's stupid. Like, this is the stuff that's going to start becoming annoying. But they're going to have to keep doing more, because you're going to run out otherwise, right? And they know people are going to buy it because it's Star Wars. You put Star Wars in it, people are going to spend money.
Yeah,
but
and this is where we've
from being cool to becoming ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, we've been lucky that they didn't just throw out a shitty old film with Rogue One, because they could have quite easily put a load of crap out and people would have gone to see it.
You can tell that there's love, right?
Yeah.
Everyone working on it, you can tell that they love it. They're like us, like all fans. They love this stuff, but it's really dangerous ground to have it all, everything tied into a canon is dangerous. I don't want the video games to be canon, because I want to be able to just, play out a story. I want an open world, open galaxy one where you can go and stuff happens and whatever. The comics, if you want to invent some characters or take it off in another direction, make them more of a what if, or make them legends. There's no harm in having more legends. I'm cool with that. They're legends of the Star Wars galaxy. Even the books to an extent. It would be better if maybe there was one set of books that, as like with the old E, is going to be this one's going to be the canon timeline, and this is all going to tie together. But all the other ones, they can be legend stories. Why not do that? That's cool. People buy it. Like me, I personally don't feel the need to buy the Legends ones because I want to read that story as canon. But some people like to read all the different stories. I don't know. I mean,
well, they don't even need to be not canon.
No, I'm just
but what they
random idea.
But what we do need is let's have a clear timeline of what we're going to tell the story on.
And not jump around.
Yeah, it's because it's confused. I think this is the hardest bit because over the past couple of months, I've watched Rogue One, I've read Aftermath, I've read comics set between Star Wars and Empire. And I've read the other, because also the other novels that have come out, like Lords of Sith was set earlier, Tarkin was set before that. The New Dawn book was set at a different period.
But
even Dark Disciple, the Clone Wars era, so all of these books I've read over the past 6 months or whatever, I don't know where I'm supposed to be.
But they also kind of do themselves a slight disservice as well because with the movies, especially now after Rogue One coming out and seeing Vader, right? Everyone's like, oh my god, Vader was awesome, right?
Let's have more Vader.
So much things people want to tell. Now, Lords of the Sith, that is Vader doing what was in that movie, right?
Yeah.
That's a good story, and people may have wanted to see a movie of that. You can't do it now because you can't make a movie and make it exactly the same as the book.
Yeah, which is the danger of what when we talked about earlier with Rebels and Darth Maul and Obi Wan.
Yeah,
save that for the films, man.
Yeah. Yeah,
we all want to see Ewan McGregor versus Darth Maul again.
Yeah, and Ray Park can still do Darth Maul.
Yeah,
he can still do it. I agree with you, man. I'm totally in the same boat with this. Initially, when they first talked about it, there was this. Okay, that sounds cool because Marvel done a good job with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, having all the movies tied together, and to an extent, you could say like Daredevil now. They reference the events and stuff like that.
2 stories a year, and they didn't even do a great job of tying in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, they didn't.
Did they?
And they've made that not part of the canon now, right? They've said that it's not.
Have they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've read that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't. But anyway, whatever.
I don't think it'll be here this time next year anyway, so who cares?
The point of it is that if they just kept it to movies and TV shows or something like that, then you could do it. You could work it out. And you have all these great ideas that you can say, hey, Lords of Sith, man, that'd be a good movie. See how people responded to Vader. People would like to see that. You're not going to be able to do that now. So now you're going to, if you want to put out another Vader movie, you're going to have to make something kind of similar and fit it in somewhere for the sake of fitting it in somewhere.
Yeah, you're right.
And some things become for the sake of it now as well. Like, they don't need to do all that stuff. So, and what you said last week about some characters are best when they're mystery. Yeah. You're going to lose all the mystery of all of the characters because they got to do something with them. They want to put them somewhere. We need more stories. What do we do? Should we make a new character? No, but what about this one? We'll do a story about him. People don't know much about Dengar's background, and then they'll give us his full family history, and his mum was related to Palpatine, or I don't know. Do you know what I mean? It'll end up going down that road because right now it's where it is, and you said, I'm seeing a couple of little things that didn't seem so up. Fast forward another 10
years.
Or, right? Where are we going to be? Because especially the amount of books that come out and the amount of comics that come out. Because the films and TV shows, you can contain it, like 1 a year, we might get 2 a year, and then you've got, Rebels is going to finish here, they're going to do another cartoon. cool, and maybe they go for a live action show. But the amount of comics, that's what made me stop buying the comics, was that they just kept on bringing more and more and more out. And the amount of books that I'm a slow reader, I just couldn't keep up. I was just like, I just can't. And now I've got the Audible, I'll try and get some more. But you know what I mean? You end up getting to a place where it's just going to be a mess. I don't know, even with a really good team sitting there working it all out, at some point there's going to be a hole. And
it's not even that they're going to make a mistake. I think what it's going to do is it's going to cramp creativity.
Yeah.
Because again, Chuck's probably going to be told now, look, just be careful, don't talk about this, don't talk about that, because we don't know what's happening here. But don't cover that period then.
Yeah.
Talk about a period that you can talk about and say, run with it.
Yeah.
Don't stifle creativity, because we know that potentially this is going to ruin or create a problem down the road. Because that's where they're going to write themselves into a box and they're going to have to reboot.
At some point, well, I don't think it'll be a reboot, but at some point it will be, this stuff's not canon anymore.
Yeah, it's going to have to be.
There'll be a whole bunch of stuff that will just stop being canon. And then it will be a bit of a rewrite of canon. And then you've got to go back over things like the Galaxy Atlas and the visual dictionaries and stuff like that.
We're comic fans,
canon, but that's not canon.
Yeah. We're comic fans, and I'm now at the jaded age of going through so many different reboots of the comic universes that I must admit, I used to care. I was a big DC Comics fan. I still am a big DC Comics fan. But the thing I loved about that was the canon and the connectivity and how they use story to explain how it's been going for 70 years or whatever. And then I just get to the point now where they keep rebooting and Marvel just don't bother. They just change their mind and just sweep it under the carpet. I've seen it all a million times now. Yeah. And what I don't want is for that to happen to Star Wars. I don't want to be... And this is, again, where I'm concerned about Woodton. There's a lot of nods to ships, to characters. You know, some of the ships have got the names from... Like, there's... I think the Emperor's private Star Destroyer has got the same name from the original Dark Empire comics. You know, one of the first of the new EU stories, and but it's a slightly different ship. And like I say, I think this Ray Sloan has got reminds me a lot of Admiral Darla and also the other admiral that was Palion, that was on the good side, or the Galactic, I can't remember what they call it, Galactic Alliance, wasn't it? So there's Flay, and like I say, with Thrawn coming back, so they're gonna start retreading same old story. That's what I don't want to see. I don't want to see a new, like how I've seen so many versions of Superman's origin. I don't want to see that for characters in Star Wars. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely gonna see a lot of the popular characters from the EU being brought in. That's definitely happening, because.
But it's like, for instance,
they're going to have to change their backstory a little bit. Well, we've seen that with Thrawn already.
Good example is in this book, The Life Debt. Without getting into why, Wedge creates a squadron of X-Wing people.
Right.
And obviously in the old EU, there was the Wraith Squadron. There's the Phantom Squadron in this.
Ah, okay.
Sounds roughly the same. Obviously a very similar name, which, it's a nice nod. Well, look, either do what you did in the old thing and just call it that.
Yeah.
But don't do something slightly different, because it's just weird.
Yeah,
I don't want to, because definitely the way I feel about Han, Luke, and Leia in the new, what I'm calling the new 52 of Star Wars, is they are slightly different characters. The way that it's the best analogy for me is that the DC universe, when it became a new 52, all the characters were not back in age, and they're all slightly more darker.
Yeah.
And I feel they've done that with Luke and Leia and Han. Since The Force Awakens, they've changed the characters a little bit.
What, in the books or in the comics?
For everything.
Right.
So the character of Leia and Han are not the characters that I grew up with. They are slightly different versions. They're like the Calvin verse of Star Trek.
In the movie,
slightly different.
In Force Awakens, they were still them, just older. You couldn't really.
No, there's a and particularly now that these books are in canon, the stories that you're reading, they're giving you a slightly different flavour than the characters I know.
But when you watched The Force Awakens, did you feel that they were different? I just thought, okay, they're older and we haven't seen what they've been through.
I think in The Force Awakens,
obviously the most different.
I think you couldn't pick it up because you don't see enough of them.
Yeah.
But I think because now I've started reading all this canon stuff, when I watch Force Awakens again, I see them as different people.
Right.
Because their experiences are different than what the experiences I knew they had before.
Well, even going back to what I said about Luke meeting up with Vader, all that just makes you watch those original movies completely different. Now, with Rogue One making me watch Episode 4 different, I kind of liked that because in that case, it made me go. It was just the realizations of like, oh wow, just before this happened, this was going on. That was quite exciting because they did a good job of it. But the stuff like Luke facing off against Vader and all that kind of stuff, I'm just like, what in his yellow jacket, you know? And then when Boba Fett hunted down Luke and then took his name to Vader, and it was like, well, Boba Fett's a popular character, so we'll say that Vader told him to go and do it, and then he tripped over, so Luke got away, because it was something like that, wasn't it? He tripped over or something. Luke escaped, so it's like, oh yeah, Boba Fett, that really good bounty hunter, he's bumbling, and so Luke escaped. But don't worry, I got a name. What is it? Skywalker. And then the glass starts to crack. Like, okay, and that, you know, that as a separate comic book story, like not the canon comic book story, it's fine.
Yeah.
But it makes everything different. You know, it makes all of it different.
Look, I think we're probably too early on in this new world of Star Wars to make a firm decision as to what they're doing is right or wrong.
And we do like to know.
I'm quite happy to park this now and sort of say, let's see what happens.
Yes, I agree.
All I'm saying is I've got some little butterflies in my little belly about what's happening here.
Man, I hear you. I agree.
And I definitely like to hear what other people think on this.
I would like to as well. I'd be interested. Hopefully, people on the Facebook group, and we should start wrapping up because this is now our longest show we've ever done.
Yeah, and I'm getting up early tomorrow.
Yes, am I. People. So let's wrap it up. Hopefully, you'll check us out on our Facebook group.
Yeah,
which is on Facebook, and it's called
Force Conversations.
You can also find us on Twitter
at Force Convo, and you can hashtag Force Convo as well if you want to keep us in the loop on the conversation.
That's right. You can get Colin on Twitter
at Captain Colin, and you can get Jay on Twitter on
at _J_tank.
Yeah. You can also email us on forceconvo@gmail.com.
Yep. And we are on SoundCloud, and we're on iTunes, and we're now on the Taylor network of podcasts, where there's a lot of other good podcasts for you to check out, including Go Trek.
No Apologies, Nothing On, Gotham by Geeks, Double Page Spread.
Look at that.
JK's Happy Hour, Go Trek Yourself, and I'm sure there's much more.
But
they're all great.
Colin isn't good at names, but he knows all the names of podcasts.
Yes, so because I love podcasts. And I love all the podcasts on the Taylor network of podcasts because that's where our home is now. Yes. Also YouTube. So we're on the YouTubes. You're watching us now, hopefully on the YouTubes. We have a facility for you to like this video. Press that little thumb button. Catherine Kennedy said, like this video. She tweeted me about it. She said, tell those viewers to press that bloody button.
Tell people to view it first, and then tell them to press the
watch
like
it,
button.
click the thing, and also subscribe to the channel. But also there's the opportunity to leave a comment there. So leave a little comment. You can also write a review on our podcast either on the Force Conversation podcast feed or on the Taylor Network podcast feed.
And make a good review.
Yeah, just tell them how brilliant I am, how organised I am, and how I remember everything that I'm supposed to be talking about. And I don't drop my phone and suddenly wander off camera. You know, it's good.
And if you did, that'd just make it more entertaining.
Yeah.
So,
and I look cool.
Use a Jedi mind trick. You will like this video.
You will enjoy this. You will love it.
You will subscribe to this channel.
Yeah. You will give us 5 stars.
Right, so anyway, wrapping it up now.
Wrapping it up.
So until next week, may the Force be with you.
Punch it, Chewie.